Welcome. My name is Joy Armstrong, and I'm the director and curator of the Galleries of Contemporary Art, GOCA. And I am delighted to welcome you to this evening's Visiting Artist Talk with Nina Elder, whose exhibition, The Source Never Diminishes, is now on view in the gallery next door through March 7th. If you haven't visited the show yet, we will be open in the gallery until about 7:30 this evening, so we invite you to join us there after Nina's talk for more conversation with each other and with the artist. First, I would like to say some thanks to our GOCA season sponsors, El Pomar Foundation, the Janine K. Sheehy Memorial Fund, UCCS Green Action Fund, UCCS Student Government Association, LART, the GOCA Advisory Council, and members of our Curators Circle. Nina's exhibition has also been generously supported by the Volpe Swank family, Lois Benson and Jane Gazal, Tim and Kate Boddington, and the Purple Mountain Group at Morgan Stanley. And yes, and we're also grateful for our colleagues in visual arts for their ongoing partnership with this speaker series. As always, I would be remiss if I didn't also give a very specific and special emphatic thanks to my colleague, Lene Bowman-Cravens, without whom everything would just fall apart. Let's be honest, everything would fall apart at GOCA without Lene. Nina Elder is a transdisciplinary artist, writer, and educator whose work bridges art, science, and social justice. She was born in Colorado Springs and graduated from Palmer High School, barely, with a D+, with thanks to Floyd Tunson, her art teacher. So thanks to Art for helping us graduate from high school. She has lived and practiced around the world and is just now resettling in southern Colorado. Nina's work is deeply rooted in field research and collaboration with scientists, often focusing on geologic processes, climate disruption, and cultural change, incorporating unconventional materials like wildfire ash and chainsaw grease. The new work that's on view at GOCA is her first foray into sculpture and a poetic dive into the grief and joy of personal transformation. Please join me in welcoming Nina Elder.
Awesome. Okay, so there's people here that have known me since I was born. There's people that I went to high school with. It's just such a trip to be in my hometown. Joy has the right name. She brings so much joy and rigor and love to everything she does, and I am just elated to be working with her on this show. Lene Bowman-Cravens is, as Joy said, she keeps us all on our feet, and it's incredible. The amazing student employees at GOCA, if you're one of them, please raise your hand. So I work with a lot of museums, and I've never had such a dedicated team of docents who are so engaged and so invested, and where I feel so much trust to how they're communicating the show. So the student employees are just the bomb. And I'm really excited to share with all of you. So I'm going to ask you to start with doing something together. I want you to push your lips together until they make a seal. Okay. And then fill your mouth up with air, like this. I don't know if you can almost see me, but poof your cheeks out. Feel the air between your teeth and your lips. Allow your tongue to float in that balloon of space. Imagine how dark it is inside of your mouth. I hope you're really doing this. I can't see you at all. Try to conceive of how much space there is between the roof of your mouth and the slippery space between your tongue. Feel that you hold something mysterious, fleeting, dark, and magical within your very familiar face. Now, while your mouth holds these mysterious, dark, magical spaces, breathe in through your nose. Breathe out. Breathe a big breath in and feel your lungs expand against your ribs. Imagine the dark inside of your body. Breathe out and notice that this life-giving force is invisible. Breathe in. I hope your mouth is still full of air, and wiggle your tongue. Feel the air enter you through your face. Feel your body change shape with inspiration. And breathe out. Okay, let it all go. Relax your face. And isn't it amazing that life depends on these invisible transformations? Isn't it just a thrill that we get to carry around these dark places that are kind of filled with nothing, but are also filled with the force of life? So thanks for doing that with me. I'm going to talk for about 45 minutes and tell you about my life, my art, this show, and how curiosity has filled me up over the years. Please think of your questions that you want to ask afterwards, especially you students, especially my students. The place where we are is informed by interruption and violence. This is a place where one version of time interrupted an older version of time. I acknowledge the indigenous people who have always stewarded the land through all these changes and continue to utilize and live on this land. The history of violence and colonialism foregrounds all action and understanding on this continent. I deeply respect the ongoing indigenous presence here, and I'm so thankful to be here. So I'm always thinking about accumulations. Not only the piles of stuff that I make work about, but the accumulations of things that I've taken on in my lifetime. I've always been deeply curious about where we come from and where we are going. And this opportunity, the show, teaching here at UCCS, giving this talk here, allows me to investigate that. I have the desire to look back and understand the history of land and people. In this moment, I feel confronted by, scared by, and activated by the future. Being an artist has allowed me to bring along all of this, all the curiosity, the fear, the observation, and vision, to help imagine all the different potential futures. I think we all can learn from each other. I think we can use this privilege, literally the privilege to be able to sit in a higher education institution and learn and be in conversation together, to be amplifiers of that which is under threat. I want to think about how we can use these connections to hold sacred what sustains life. And I always am asking myself how I can use this privilege to create more opportunities for curiosity, empathy, and vibrant futures. So thank you for joining me in this. For about 20 years, I made drawings of holes in the ground and piles of rocks. That was it. The piles of rocks that were the subject matter of my drawings are the innards of the earth that after millennia of geologic time were taken from their homes, turned inside out, stripped of their treasures, and then left to geologic time again. These piles have a slow yet disrupted relationship to natural entropy. The scars in the landscape will surely last longer than these drawings of them. Medicines, machines, money, the materials in our homes and cleaning products and art supplies are all dependent on mineral extraction. We exhume our daily needs from the earth. These holes and piles, these things that we often do not want to look at, these illustrate what we value. And my ongoing questions are whether these are disaster sites, or are they monuments to human productivity? I question the resiliency of a natural environment barraged with industrial veracity. For many years, I was very literal. I made drawings of pit mines. I wanted people to see what their consumption had caused. I wanted us to feel uncomfortable. But it wasn't entirely about guilt and shame. I was developing an acute sense of realism, and not just with my drawing style. It was the meditative act of drawing as an act of discovery and deep seeing. This is what our planet looks like. It is perforated and engineered. I drew mines as a gesture of reverence. This is the Rauschenberg pit in Indonesia. It was closed for a long time, but reopened in the 90s as digital communication grew. There are complex minerals coming out of this mine that are in every phone and every computer. Every time you text, listen to music, or check your email, you are benefiting from this mine. So how do we reckon with the fact that we have a piece of a mountain in our pocket, that our whole life depends on this hole in the ground? I don't know. Over the past several years, I've spent a lot of time exploring mines, getting dirty, driving trucks, meeting people who work really hard. I was really excited because I got to ride around on the largest bulldozer on planet Earth up in the Klondike. As you can tell from the look on my face, I was about 3 stories up in the air on top of that machine. So it's commonly imagined that mining is an old-fashioned thing, something done by swashbuckling guys in leather pants in the Old West. More than 80 million people are working in a mine right now, at this moment. Almost 5% of humans work in mines. People toil the soil, seeking their dreams, looking for a bonanza every minute of every day. I've shared meals and stories with miners, and I've realized that we're really similar. We creative folks and these hardworking miners, we all seek the glimmer, the unseen sparkle. We imagine a reality where, through our unique labors and specialized tools, we might unearth some great bounty. We are willing to smash ourselves into hard places, work ourselves to exhaustion, follow our vision. And if we're lucky, we find that glimmer. Once we have it in hand, that bright thing, we have to convince other people that what we've done is valuable. We ask other people to believe in us, invest in us, have faith that we can keep producing the bright, shiny thing. It is beautiful to work with conviction and with dedication. It is a wonderful thing to believe that there's a soft sparkle in the hardest and darkest of places. At the same time, I have found myself horrified that I'm so sympathetic to miners. I'm supposed to be an environmentalist. But it has become clear to me that without them and their breathtaking works, moments like these would not be possible. This projector, this screen, the camera that took these photos, the seats you're sitting in, the glasses I'm looking through, the car that drove you here. A miner pulled every single one of those materials out of the earth. I've always been interested in mines. For my 6th birthday, my family went on an underground tour of the Molly Kathleen mine in Cripple Creek. That little serious-looking one is me. So cute. I remember this day so clearly, the simultaneous attraction and repulsion of the dark tunnels, the uncanny presence of our living bright yellow bodies in a place where they never should be. I was aware throughout my childhood of the weird dissonance between the quaint ski towns of Colorado and the underground labyrinths that created them. I could not and cannot reckon with this geologic dysmorphia, and that's me digging my outhouse hole, which I'll talk more about in a minute. In order to understand the planet and my place on it, I have developed a strong love of solo backpacking. Every year, I spend weeks, if not months, alone in canyons, on glaciers, in the mountains, and exploring deserts. I have found incredible solace in these solo journeys, where I can pay attention to the earth, shift my focus from the vast to the tiny, and not be distracted by conversation. Just me and my body, eating, sleeping, walking, drinking, and pooping outside. In this exploration of places where the geologic world and the human world are in visible relationship, I became very involved in a tiny town in Alaska. Have any of you been to McCarthy, Alaska? My family. It is where some of the largest glaciers coexist with the birth of the world's largest mining corporation, the Kennecott Corporation. I would spend time alone in this landscape, often being dropped off by tiny airplanes to experience the dynamic land with no distraction or human filter, just me and my tent and curiosity. And yes, I've seen a lot of bears, and I've seen them do very funny things. I cannot give a talk without showing these photos, because isn't it great? It's just great. Just great. They like to wear traffic cones on their heads. Anyways, I'm gonna have some water. I just got really excited. So I fell totally in love with glaciers, and I'm sure any of you that has spent time around big glaciers understand that feeling. It's not necessarily because of their beauty, but it's because of their ability to change. They create change and they record change. They literally gouge and rip and rumble as though they were a bulldozer. Glaciers are at once vulnerable and immensely strong. This is what a receding glacier looks like. It has so much earth in it that it no longer looks like ice, but like an industrial scrape, a gravel pit. As a glacier retreats, a huge weight is lifted from the earth. The freshly exposed land gains a bit of elevation in a process called isostatic rebound. A burden has been removed. The earth breathes in, it expands, it decompresses. The land becomes softer and less dense. The earth wants a bit more space. The planet seeks equilibrium under our feet. A few summers ago, I chose to spend time in Bisbee, Arizona. It's kind of weird to go to the US-Mexico border in August, but that's not a topic for today. So it's a mining town that was built into the walls of a canyon that is slowly widening into a pit mine. I obviously thought I was going there to make work about this hole. And then I discovered this place, just down the hill on the US-Mexico border. It is a series of man-made mesas that hulk, black and dark and strange. From 1904 until 1987, the Dodge Phelps Company operated a smelter in the desert. The United States government subsidized all the mines in the region to bring their mining waste to the borderlands. The piles are too big to hide, too outrageous to camouflage. I had to know them. I'm no geologist or mining expert, and I'm sure a few of you are, but this is what I understand happened. The mining companies dug out gigantic holes in the ground, crushed up the rocks, and soaked the rock powder in massive tanks of arsenic and acid. Copper separates from rock in these bizarre conditions, and so they take that poisonous copper sludge, heat it to a bazillion degrees, and turn it into copper to make the electric wiring in your house. And in most cases, they dump it into the pregnant leach solution, as we see. But for 83 years, the US government paid mining companies to dump it on Mexico. Big difference. Acidic, radioactive, toxic waste. This place is bigger than I can convey. It's about 80 miles by 4 miles and up to 800 feet thick. Walking on the piles, there is a horrifying, dull, tinkling echo, as though the sovereign sound of rocks has been stolen. Everything is iridescent and brittle and breaking, the integrity gone. The first time I went, it was 118 degrees outside. My tears evaporated from my face. My shoes melted. I filled my sundress pockets full of rocks, holding it away from my body so they would not burn me. I do not know if these things actually still count as rocks. I have a sense that any essence of geology has been taken from them. The more I thought about the slag, the less power I had to turn away from the piles. I had never witnessed the blatant weaponization of land. Here, the US-Mexico border has been turned into one of the most acidic places on the planet. Here, trees die and the air smells of sulfur. Here, a human body stands out in stark contrast against the landscape. Here are the wastelands of capitalism. Here is a monument to our addiction to electricity and convenience. And here is the hunting ground for Border Patrol. Here is a place for death. I had the desire to cradle the slag, to hold it to my body, to learn from it. I sewed a series of contraptions that helped me lift and hold these very heavy things. I wanted to use my strength and my softness to restore some dignity to these rocks. By definition, to overburden is to give someone a weight that is too great to carry. Additionally, an overburden refers to the geologic material that is removed by miners to expose the desired underground mineral. My sister came down to the border to help me film. We were scared. It was really hot. We were trespassing. The Border Patrol swarmed around us, ignoring us with our white skin and cameras. I did not know if the contraptions I made would actually work. I did not know if I was strong enough to do what I wanted to do. What scared me most was putting myself in my artwork. I've used my body to access all kinds of places, to do research, but never to convey the message. I had never allowed my instincts to move me so deeply. And watching this footage now and seeing it in exhibitions, I'm still learning what these exhibitions were. I feel the horrible transformation that these molecules went through. And part of me says, yes, me too. I've been through some shit, but as long as I still have muscles and bones and breath and sweat, I will celebrate you. I know that these man-made rocks are essentially made of stardust and celestial magic. I feel the journey they have been on. I want to dignify them as new beings, not something that has been crushed, melted, dumped, and forgotten. I am aligned with them, and so are you. They gave us our plumbing pipes, our electrical wires, our cell phone synapses. Our ease is their demise. Our flawed politics are expressed in their piles. I don't know how to say thank you to a rock, and this is the closest I have come. To this overburden, I give you my strength. I lift you from anonymity. I press you to my flesh. I call you precious and wonderful. I do everything I can to hold you, even if it hurts. I will cradle you, carry you, balance you through times of imbalance. I will meet you where you are now, how you are now. I acknowledge you as the foundation on which I stand. I do not pretend this foundation is stable. It is brittle. It is acidic. It is exhausting and exhausted. It is a killer. If I cannot carry you back to the mountain, I can try to be a mountain. If I cannot restore you to the dark timefulness of geology, I will lift you in the light. My skin can scar and heal, my spine can straighten, my muscles can strain and shiver, but I do this to share my strength with you. That project changed my life. Beginning to understand that we all exist within ecologies is the most important lesson we can learn about ourselves and the way we are moving into the future. The very word ecology represents the act of living together. In Latin, oeko means coming together, which is derived from the ancient Greek word oikos, which translates to household. When you imagine all that comes together to make a home, shelter, nourishment, a place to rest, a place to feel safe, a place to love and create and share, this is what we need to be protecting in times of environmental precarity. It might sound cheesy, but it's not. The earth is truly our only home. And I'm really interested in what happens when our home changes. How do we respond when we need to respond at increasingly uncomfortable speeds? I think about how we can continue creating in times of unprecedented loss. I feel a strange whiplash around the urgency of climate change and my desire to slow down and relish the world that surrounds me. Everything seems to be speeding up, yet a big part of me just wants to hug my sister, go for a hike, eat a burrito, read a book, and pet the dogs. Aren't these cute dogs? That sensation is the psychological condition called solastalgia. It comes from the combination of solace that is felt regarding home and the sensation of impending change, a remembering and longing for that solace. Solastalgia was coined by the Australian eco-philosopher Glenn Albrecht in 2005 and is now a very common term. Although it's new in its ideas, I think it is one of the most unifying and ubiquitous sensations. Solastalgia is a premonition of transition, a sense of grief from an anticipated future. Solastalgia is anxiety about disintegration from a perspective of wholeness. It is the feeling of homesickness before leaving home. Solastalgia describes that we cannot prevent ourselves from moving into the future. Yet in the future, we are going to miss this present moment. I think it's especially poignant for college kids. I wonder how we can acclimate ourselves to change, to be nimble, to move with intention into the future. I've been fully nomadic for over 9 years, traveling for projects, teaching, and research opportunities. By staying in motion, my world is a blur of change. I'm slowly putting the pieces in place to decrease that blur and find more focus. I'm overwhelmed with gratitude and joy to have bought some land in southern Colorado, where I'm almost finished building a home and a studio. I keep saying I'm going to slow down from traveling, but amazing people like all of you here at UCCS keep me on the road. My new home is on top of a mesa where people have sat for many, many years. I find arrowheads and watch clouds. The sky is usually doing something amazing. My land is volcanic rubble, carpeted with grasses, studded with wind-blown trees. I live with limited solar electricity. I drink rainwater, and I don't really have cell phone reception or internet. It's an experiment in solitude and a laboratory for paying attention. I want to live in a way where I can comprehend, be responsible, and fix any system that I depend on. This is a first step in that direction. My home is 1 shipping container. My studio is 2 shipping containers, so my priorities are clear. The containers were heading for the dump after crossing the ocean many times. One of them smelled like pineapple, another one smelled like dead fish. I also built myself an outhouse. The process has been rugged and long with a few missteps along the way. There has been lightning and a really hot summer when I lived in an uninsulated shipping container while putting up almost 2 miles of 4-strand barbed wire fencing. It was terrible. But I never thought that barbed wire would be a sign of love, but it is. I'm learning that. I'm now planting seeds and wild grasses and native flowers to keep the cows out. And keeping the cows out feels like hope. Flowery, green, grassy hope. This is the studio on the left last winter, and then this is just a few days ago. I went home for the weekend and finished putting in the floor of the studio. I can't believe I'm showing you all this, but I think it's interesting. And this is my house. That's the kitchen table I grew up with. My family ate dinner at it every night. It's been an incredible thing to make a home, especially with the help of friends and family and vibrant community. People like to work hard and help. While it's not art, I'm so happy to share this creation with you. And moving into a 270 square foot house has taught me so much about what I value. If anything, I want to encourage you to consider what you can do without. Downsizing feels really good. Buying less is liberating, and leaving less behind is a miracle. So it might be obvious that I don't watch a ton of movies or TV. My students can tell you I understand no pop culture references. But I'm aware of this fascination that so many folks have with the end of the world, especially asteroids and black holes. People are addicted to the heroic feats that happen in adventure movies and the resolution of dystopia in science fiction. I really like the portable black hole that Bugs Bunny often encounters, and Wile E. Coyote's never-ending encounters with the end of the world. It seems we need to flirt with the idea of obliteration, contend with it from our couches, laugh at it, and feel brave by watching it. We want to acquaint ourselves with loss, but only on a screen, and only if it has a Hollywood ending. A few years ago, I went through a really hard time. My career looked great from the outside, but I was deeply unhappy and struggling. I no longer enjoyed drawing because it had become very formulaic feeling. I was exhausting from pretending to be an extrovert. So I took a year off from exhibiting and teaching and promised myself to only do things that I wasn't very good at doing. During that time, I began to inexpertly build my house. I wrote a ton. I traveled in different ways. And I began making pools of ink as a meditation. These pools became a focal point, a black hole, a death spiral, the dark empty, the big unknown. Creatively contemplating the void helped counter the whiplash I felt around a series of losses. I was misdiagnosed with breast cancer and emerged so dang thankful for my health. I lost my closest collaborators, but came out feeling lighter and more agile. My dad died. A dog I loved died. But it was really good to see that pain ending. I finally came out as asexual and began learning how to live with the freedom and misunderstanding inherent in a label. Coming out resulted in several friends rejecting me, but I gained so much selfhood. And on and on and on. It's an accumulation of new openings for new knowledge. So as we're traipsing across the horizon of climate collapse and charging into social discord and all forms of precarity, I'm changing too. I feel entirely done pretending that things can go back to normal. In my privilege as a teacher and an artist, I refuse to model any more make-believe. In my heart that values truth and authenticity, I'm not going to model false hope anymore. I know that this work looks abstract, but it's a huge emotional leap for me into a form of realism, different from those realistic drawings. It's an act of letting go of what no longer serves me. It's a clarification. And I learned something about systems too. In these broken times, when the weather keeps getting weirder and fascism is no longer veiled, and state-sanctioned violence and pedophilia are somehow getting normalized, something's gotta give. I believe that if we can do anything in this ecology of loss, we must enter into a state of hospice. The old systems are dying. And when you're with the dying, your senses become attuned, outsized, sacred. You stop maniacally trying to pretend that everything will go back to normal. You abandon the absurdity of technology and the acrobatics of sustaining life at all costs. When you are with the dying, you suddenly understand that extremes can happen simultaneously: anger and joy, grief and beauty, sentimentality and imagination. Hospice probably feels like a relief. It is a once-in-a-lifetime form of honesty that creates shared humanity. We all die. As part of my exploration into paradoxes, this blip of life, this weighty experience amidst the vast unknown, I've become fascinated by bird gizzards. I'll get there. I was in Portugal during my year of doing things I'm not good at and was able to help a local farmer slaughter their chickens. Trigger warning, I'm going to show images of meat processing. And I'm also going to read a letter that I wrote to a friend during that time period. Each day, each moment, I am casting into the unknown. I make small gestures in the vast, tiny bites, tiny cuts to reveal something true, absurd and true. I am astounded that all the birds flying around have a sack of rocks under their rib cages. What an invisible weight. What a counter-narrative to the story of flight. The swallowed food is stored whole in the bird's crop, a chamber in the neck where living insects suffocate in the dark, and flowers full of seeds are stored for future hungers. Then gravity jostles the food down into the gizzard. Birds have to bump and bounce, waddle and flap to make the food fall into digestion. The grinding of the stones and food is both mechanical and muscular. Last week, I was able to visit with a neighbor as they slaughtered 15 chickens. This might seem strange or horrible, but it was not. I was glad for the clinical white walls, the surgical bright light, the hard cleanliness of stainless steel tables and blades. The gizzard is a pouch of strong cartilage and bands of muscle, its surface inside a sleek, vibrant yellow or green. I could not believe how hard a gizzard is, taut with stones, so little room for hunger. You could really hurt someone by throwing a gizzard at them. I wondered if it nearly outweighed the rest of the bird. The rocks inside a gizzard become many things. They are life. They fly. They are the airborne geologic. There was a tenderness at one moment that I saw repeated 15 times. Practiced wisdom. The woman held the bird against her own abdomen, one hand searching inside, fingers around heart. No grasping or pinching, but a firm body-to-body holding, cradled. I do not want to make work about death or the cutting or the release of life, but only in the absence of life can each bird's collection of pebbles be examined. The word disambiguation is coming to mind. These non-ambiguous stones, carried until death, a center heavier than a heart. Stones that keep one from choking, stones that keep one alive. Ballast. Each bird carries a hard mass. Bird becomes erratic, geologic. In Portugal, the importance of stone is prevalent. Some of the largest and most historic marble quarries border where these chickens hatched and lived their whole lives. This is the marble that stayed pinkly unflexing under the feet of Christopher Columbus and his crimes. This is the marble that gleams blood red on the floor of the Vatican. And this is the marble that your kitchen countertops are probably made out of. Not coincidentally, the origin of the word quarry means entrail, the once hidden heart. And before all that, 8,000 years ago, humans erected these cromlechs across southern Europe. This collection of circular megaliths align with interplanetary events, hold space for rituals, and act as calendars. Now they are tucked between small villages, quarries, and chicken farms. I was stunned, absolutely stunned, when I imagined the gastroliths. Sorry, I cannot say that word very well, gastroliths. One bird's collection was primarily pink-toned stones. Another swallowed almost entirely red pebbles. Another gathered only black and white. There is some choice in what is swallowed, what attracts the bird, what it chooses to carry for life. Small museums, small expressions of taste. Birds have no taste buds and no teeth. I wrote to an ornithologist at the Smithsonian and asked them about this blatant expression of visual aesthetics, and she wrote back, "This has been observed repeatedly, but has been deemed too poetic to study." After I returned from Europe, this conflict between light and heavy found expression in the world and in my art. In February of 2024, the Israeli army gave children in Palestinian refugee camps kites and encouraged them to go into a field and fly them. Then they bombed those children with white phosphorus. The children that did not die had their hands and arms melted off. Pause. Imagine that. It is horrible. I was working in Rhode Island at the time, looking at eroded shorelines and collecting these tidally polished asphalt orbs. My residency was near the Raytheon factory, where they were making Israeli military uniforms. Raytheon also manufactured the bombs that are getting dropped on Gaza. I went to the factory and asked for any scraps or cutoffs from the black Israeli army outfits. From that, I made this bulletproof kite. It broke my heart to make this thing, but it set me on the trajectory that I'm now on. Making this kite, I could not stop thinking, what are we tethered to? What pulls on us while we try to keep our feet on the ground? Kites need wind and tension to fly, but are not meant to fly away. There is a mutual strain, a push and a pull, an unfurling and a reeling in. How do I reconcile that my tax dollars were used to melt off children's arms? How do I keep my feet on the ground when I am knocked down by my implication in these horrors? I ended up putting a prism in the center of the war kite that is currently casting rainbows in the gallery. I have to believe that even in the face of genocide and war crimes, something will come. The grief will be transformed. Light will seep through and show us something beautiful. I've never talked about this before publicly like this. It's intense. I'm very curious about materials and how they tell a story. My students hear me talk about an object's specific gravity and its aura. Whoop, whoop to my students. I think every piece of artwork is a time capsule of attention and intention. Several years ago, I met with some traditional Spanish and indigenous sheep farmers who were grazing their flocks on their historic lands in what we now call New Mexico. While sheep farming and wool processing has not changed that much since colonial times, what has changed is that their lands were all affected by nuclear testing, but they endure. I bought undyed wool that they had produced from their black sheep. Then I went to a factory in Albuquerque that makes coffins and asked them for the remnants of their fabric. From these two materials, I have been crocheting a black hole for several years. I work on it and sleep under it at night. I consider the extreme resilience and endurance of the nuclear downwinders, how they persevere on what feels like the precipice of a military-industrial black hole. This object has become a symbol of bizarre personal endurance for me. It was in my van when it got struck by lightning and later exploded, and I had to unravel several years' worth of charred yarn. Then, while it was being stored, it was infested with rats. Again, I had to unravel and repair. And then just before the show opened, a bear got into my truck and unraveled a couple more years' worth of work. It's amazing how art can teach lessons. I didn't like any of those, but there they are. So thinking about these invisible forces that are always present, grief, joy, gravity, potential, unraveling, healing, time, equilibrium, I really wanted to make something that gave form to the formless. The wind is such a presence in the Southwest landscape that I love, but I realized it makes no sound until it rustles through something. We can't see the wind until it touches something else. So less than a year ago, I started making windsocks. While I was sewing these two, my family member Mitch was in a hospital fighting for his life. Invisible infections, invisible antibiotics, unquantifiable pain, amorphous clouds of fear. It was horrible to not be with him or to be able to help. So I made these two, maybe they're prayers, meditations for his spine, for the abolition of infection. Give us a wave, Mitch. He's alive and right there. He made it. So almost the whole show here is new work, things that I made during my year of not doing things I'm good at. It is such a gift to have worked with Joy, to trust the process, to experiment, and then to be present with you all, a community of inquiry in this newness. These sculptures are made out of erosion control fabric. I'm sure it's familiar to all of you. This plastic fabric is finally being put out of commission by highway departments because it releases so many microplastics into the watersheds. I'm working with state departments of transportation across the US to use as much of it as possible. I think it's an amazing physical reminder of how much we humans want to make the world stay the same, how we try to control things from collapsing or eroding. Change is constant, and our desire to pause it is bizarre. The source never diminishes. That is the name of this sculpture. I hope you noticed it in the lobby. And the name of the show, and one of the many definitions of a black hole. It also references the law of conservation of energy, a fundamental principle in physics, which states that energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed from one form to another. Isn't that amazing? Like, really think about that. Energy is constantly being transformed. It can't leave. This huge sculpture has over 6 miles of ruffles, and I used more than 10 miles of thread to create it. I sewed it in 15 segments and had no idea what it would look like until this awesome team here helped me install it with 2 scissor lifts and a lot of patience. People say it looks like a sandworm, an oil pipeline, a snake, a tunnel, a bad dream, a root, or a portal. Yes, it's all of these things. Like these phenomena that fill our lives, it cannot be seen from one perspective. It is a conduit for your imagination. And many of the sculptures in the show have buttholes. This started as a response to a scientist telling me that maybe black holes have buttholes, and that this glorious organization of matter and life is potentially what spews out of the backside of a black hole. Wow, I love science. Joy taught me that in Hindu religion, there's the value of apana, the sacred energy of release. Apana has the same root word, apa, as apocalypse. It is the spirit of the bowels, the squeezing portal of release. Our culture and our economy are entirely built around the concept that we deserve what we want and that we are able to throw it away and be totally done with it when we're finished. We hide some of the most common and profound transformations. We are deeply afraid of loss, aging, erosion, trash, and poop. But in these older religions, there is a revered energy that hones the attention and fosters curiosity to be engaged in that process of letting go, to not be squeamish about it, but to be intentional and reverent. So I want you to go back to that space within yourself, to the dark miracle of your lungs, to that magic cavern in your mouth. Join me. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in the unknown. Breathe out the universe. Breathe in your life force. Breathe out magic. Breathe into the invisibility. Breathe out into your glorious potential to change. So thank you. That's all I've got.